Hello, friends. I'm Kush and and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today. Friends, welcome back to another episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Kush and this is the beginning of November. It is solidly fall going into winter here in San Francisco, my home base. There is still plenty of sunshine and it's beautiful, but summer seems like it was so long ago, and we are going to experience the changing of the clocks this weekend, which always leaves me just a little bit depressed because the days are going to be so much shorter. But this is also an excellent opportunity to bring to you today's episode, which is about this journey into wellness and resilience, an important theme to reflect with this winter weather coming in. Our guest is someone who brings deep wisdom with a down to earth vibe, a blend of science, self compassion, and practical know how that can help us all build a stronger, healthier mind and body. Heather Heenan, a licensed mental health therapist, life coach, an athlete, she's a climber and a mountain biker, and she is the voice behind the excellent Weight Loss and Wellness for Real podcast. Joins us for a conversation filled with insight and laughter. Heather's approach to wellness isn't about quick fixes. It's about creating an anti fragile mindset that not only withstands life's challenges, but grows stronger from them. We dive into accessible journaling techniques, redefining self love, and finding true peace with who we are, even when the going gets tough. In this episode, Heather and I connected on a personal level, opening up about our own struggles with well being. There were moments of vulnerability and shared experiences, which made our conversation not only inspiring, but also refreshingly real. We found ourselves laughing, reflecting, and sharing practical ideas that any of you can start using today to build a healthier mindset and lifestyle. So sit back and join us on this journey towards resilience and self discovery. And as always, if you enjoyed the episode, if you're here for the first time, would love to see you back here again. And if you have listened to the podcast for more than two episodes, please leave a rating on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It helps others find the podcast. Also, the YouTube channel is growing quickly, and you will find all the past episodes and conversations on YouTube as well. Just search for Ageless Athlete Podcast. All right, friends, here we go.
I am in Rapid City, South Dakota, in my little home office, watching it rain outside. And oh, this is funny. Well, not really funny, but I had about 4 ounces of shrimp and some hummus for breakfast. Yeah, which I happen to have probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week. So one of my favorites.
Just when I go through a run of six people telling me they had oatmeal in the morning, and I think I'm not going to be surprised. You bring on
Yeah,
this
the
very
shrimp and
interesting breakfast. I know we're going to jump into a little bit about dietary practices, but
yeah,
yeah, I'm waiting to be informed about the benefits of this Heather Thursday morning breakfast. You are in South Dakota, a part of the
yeah,
country that I have not had the pleasure of visiting yet.
yes, and we
But
want you to come.
looking at some of the adventures you're having, you certainly it almost feels like to a very small audience, you are creating a visit South Dakota billboard. Like this is a marketing campaign, and I mean, I am like getting hooked slowly and surely.
You know what's hilarious about that? This is so funny. I actually got paid to make a I'm in a whole bunch. This was last summer. I'm in a whole bunch of South Dakota tourism ads right now. I never even know where they're going to pop up. But so I actually did that for money. But yes, my social media, here's the thing. Probably some people would hate that I'm showing off South Dakota and all its beauty because there's lots of people who are like, we don't want anyone to come here. You know how that goes. But really, what I'm doing is I really feel passionate about convincing people, inspiring people to just get outdoors, to just be outdoors. So that's
Mm-hmm.
really what I try to do with a lot of that.
Your message is being heard loud and clear.
Oh, good. I love hearing that. Yeah, good.
Heather, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Heather Heinen, and I am okay, well, this is always a tricky question because, like, what do you do, right? And so I automatically wanted to go to the occupation thing, but I really actually never enjoy when people answer that way. Like, I actually want to know other things about them. So, what I'll say first is, what do I do? I really try my hardest to play outside as much as I possibly can. And then on the side, I'm a mental health therapist, and I've been doing that for about 25 years now. So, yeah, so that's a lot of what I do. I'm also a mom, single mom to a daughter who is getting ready to, well, she just graduated, so she's getting ready to go to college. So I'm getting ready to be, I guess, a very single mom where I will have an empty household.
Mm.
So that's a big part of my life right now. And yeah, I think that those are mainly the things that I do: work, child, play outside.
Sounds like a great combination, and you seem to be able to weave in these elements in a way that is perhaps synergistic. Let me ask you this. Tell us about your journey into the world of wellness, and
Yeah.
then tell us about how some of these dimensions in your life come together.
Yeah. So, like I said, I've been a mental health therapist for almost 25 years. So, the wellness thing, I suppose, kind of comes along with that. And I really, all my life, have really been interested in wellness, but I would also say more on a deeper level, really, since I was a little kid, really interested in how to live like my best life without regrets. And so, that whole piece, I think, kind of plays into who I am and what I try to share and try to inspire in people is this idea of, this is kind of, as far as we know, one precious life. And so, how do we live it to the best of our ability in the way that we really want to be living it? And so, of course, that also falls into wellness. How do we take care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? And so I'm sort of so I feel my purpose is really to try to help others find that for themselves personally, because it's different. What it's going to look like is different for all of us. So I try to live that way as best I can, and then really enjoy sharing that and trying to help other people get into that space. So through my job, I get a lot of that because I have interaction with my clients where I can share a lot of that And I also do some weight loss coaching and some life coaching, which is a little different than therapy, but the same idea on helping people really get to that life, and also physically in their body where they really want to be. And then the second part of your question was, what was it? How they all kind of come together in my own life? Yeah, and well,
Correct.
I probably
Yeah.
answered. Yeah, I probably answered that because it's like I really do try to live that way to the best of my ability.
One thing I'm always curious about is two things I want to ask of you. One
Sure.
is going back to your early days. What
Yeah.
did you want to be as a grown up?
Mm. Yeah. I can remember one time, I would journal a lot as a kid. And I remember maybe when I was 17 or 18 finding a journal entry that I had wrote, maybe was when I was in fifth grade. And this sounds so cliche, but really I had written about really wanting to help people feel better, like wanting to help people be happy, So yeah, so that's just always kind of been with me. It's a helping profession, but it's also, I guess, part of who I am. And I always think I'm not trying to make it sound like, oh, I'm this like amazing helper who loves to help all these people. In a way, if you're a helper or you enjoy it, there is a selfish piece of that as well. I get, and I'm not. I mean, I'm very aware of that it's something that fills me up. So yeah, it's not like I'm this like amazing person out there helping everyone. It's just like
Yeah.
I have a lot of benefit from it too. So yeah, I think I've always kind of known since I was little. I mean, I didn't know I wanted to be a therapist, but I somehow wanted to be working, helping people.
Mm. And then in parallel, were you always an athlete? Did you always
No,
have a penchant
no.
for adventures outside? What's the
Um,
journey there?
Yeah. So no, I was not an athlete at all. And I did not start doing anything what I would call athletic until maybe my 20s. I started running. And actually, that's a whole other story because that put me I almost got addicted to running and I did all these not great things to my body during that time, but that is another story. But that is when I started. I didn't do anything in high school. Well, I was a cheerleader. I don't know. I don't think that counts. So, but I always loved being outside. Like as a kid, I was always outside. We had a really big yard, a
Mm.
smaller home, but a really big yard. We climbed trees constantly. Um, both sets of my grandparents were farmers, so I would spend time on a farm in the summer. So there was really just this outdoor sort of lifestyle. And yeah, so I think I was in love with nature from the beginning.
Mm. Let's see. So you started going outside. You were in love with nature. You
Yes,
were perhaps not, in your words, not a natural athlete.
right.
Somehow you got addicted to running. Actually,
Yeah.
I
Sounds
haven't heard
funny,
of
doesn't
that
it?
expression
Right.
before.
Yeah.
Most people would not think of that as unhealthy, but
Yeah.
but what you're saying is that it has a dark side that
Yeah.
you experienced. Okay,
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
We'll ask you a little bit more about that.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
what are the sports? So the part that I have fun with here,
Hmm.
that two aspects of this conversation. One is the work that you do, and one is the play that you do. And I think they both come
Yes.
together. But what are the current, let's say, favorite ways that you recreate outside?
Oh, yes. My two favorite ways are rock climbing and biking of some sort. So that might be mountain biking, gravel biking. I'm really into bike packing these days.
Mm.
And in fact, ironically, I'm going for my biggest one starting tomorrow morning at like 4 in the morning. So I'm a little like jacked up on thinking about that. But those are definitely my favorite things to do to recreate.
Do you ever bike pack taking your climbing gear with you?
No, I've never done that, Krish. I don't know about that one. You would think it'd be fun to combine the two. I'm not so sure.
I think the way we connected was you were on a climbing trip when you maybe discovered my podcast, and
That's
you
right.
were in Mexico,
Yeah, El Salto.
in El Salto. How important is it for you to have these adventures outside where you not only go and climb or
Hmm.
bike pack, but you also visit places that are maybe out of the beaten path?
Yeah. How important is it? For me personally, really, really important. Like there is, and I know you've done a ton of traveling, so I know you'll get this, but there is something so special about getting out of where you live, where you're used to, where where you know everything, and getting to be in a new environment, a new culture. In fact, you probably know this, but there's some science behind what happens to our brain when we get into a new environment, and we actually have neurogenesis happen, which makes us feel really good. That's when we grow neurons and connections. And so anytime you're in when you travel, that's why it can feel so exciting and so good. We're actually, our brain is changing in that moment. And yeah, for me, it really is. It really is important. It makes me, and I want to do lots more. Like I want to adventure in as many different places as I possibly can. And I love being immersed in new cultures. And it's that newness, that freshness. Yeah, it's important.
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24 by 7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code Ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code Ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode.
I haven't done any bikepacking. It's one of those things which is on my list. Part of
Oh, good,
my
good,
reluctance
good.
might be like you. I also crave adventures outside,
I know you do. Yeah,
and part of it is I am a little bit overwhelmed by the logistics. Perhaps maybe it's not as
yeah.
complicated of being able to
It's
pack
not.
everything, pack my bike up,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then also have some level of self-reliance on being able
Right.
to fix my bike when I'm stuck in some
I
remote
know.
part of the Andes in Guatemala.
Yeah.
Tell us
Is that where you're
how.
going to do your first bike packing adventure? Is that what you're going to
I shouldn't, but that's what I'm inspired by. But
do? Okay, yes,
I
yes.
probably need some building blocks and go
You
out
can do
on
some practice. Yes.
some practice. What is the wildest bike packing trip that you've been on?
Okay, so I have not bike packed anywhere else besides here in the Black Hills, but I can tell you that the wildest one I went on was, I like to go solo. So those are just, to me, wild. And maybe that's the point of this too. I mean, I'm just thinking of listeners. It's like everybody's wild is their own personal thing, right? So for me, to bike pack, to be wild doesn't mean I need to go to another country or anything like that. But it is for me when I go alone. So when I go solo, and it's just what you said, like you're just completely relying on yourself. And it's not like I ever put myself in grave danger or anything, but there's dangerous times where there's not, in the hills here, there's not a lot of cell service and things like that. So you don't have a lot of communication. Um, so it'd be things like if your bike does break down and you can't fix it, like you're doing some hiking, to try and get help and that sort of stuff. And there's cougars and can be weird people out there sometimes. So to me personally, that feels really wild when I'm out there anywhere alone.
It seems, it seems certainly a zone where one is out of one's comfort zone.
Right. Yes.
You seem like a friendly social person. I assume
Okay,
you like
right.
the company of other people. I am curious, why do you embark on these? What's important? Why are these solo missions important?
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, I can, I'm a therapist, so bear with me because I feel pretty deeply. And so, I feel a lot of feelings very strongly. And so for me, being out there solo, it really is very much a spiritual space for me. For me, is one of the only times in my life that I've ever felt just for days being in the moment, like not having to try to be in the moment. When you're in the moment, like how that sense of flow, like how good it can
Mm-hmm.
feel when you're not ruminating on the past, you're not predicting or trying to future tell anything, and you're just like right here, like very grounded. When I'm out there alone, I get that for hours on end. Whereas like if we're talking climbing, and I know you're a climber, and I know you'll get this, when you're doing a climb, a lot of times we can get into that present moment and be in flow. And so it's, I'm a sport climber, so it's maybe, a few minutes long or something like that. But bike packing by myself, because it's not quite the same with someone else. But when I'm solo, it's like being able to be in that moment for an extended period of time. So to me, it feels very spiritual. Um, it's very fulfilling. It's very soul fulfilling to be out there alone. I've gone with friends, and that's super fun too. There's just something deeper about when I'm out there alone, if that makes sense.
I think I feel you.
Yeah.
You are adventurous, but then also introspective. And I sense that while you're exploring the outdoors, you're also exploring yourself in a way.
That's right. Kush, you should be a therapist.
I'm curious, like, what are these personal limits, these challenges that you find in these adventures? Just maybe in the bike packing aspect that makes you hungry and crave those feelings.
Yeah. That struggle piece, I think what you're kind of like those moments out there by myself. So I'm thinking things like, you've been on in the saddle for like 12 hours or something, and so it's more exhausted than I've ever been. You're more tired than you've ever been. You still have to navigate. I mean, you're out there alone, so you got to figure this out, and you still have to navigate. You got to figure out how to set up your tent. If you're running out of water, it's like, okay, where's my next water source? Do I have to run and get water? Those sort of things. It's very much this, you feel like you're trying to survive, just physically survive. And it's a part of my life. I had never experienced that before. I'd never put myself in a space where I was physically trying to survive on my own. And it sounds so silly as I'm saying out loud, because it's like, is that really fun? And it's like, well, in the moment, it can even be scary. But it's when you move through that struggle, it's like you get out on the other side, and when you come home, everything feels so much more amazing, like that shower that you take for granted every morning feels like the most
Mm.
amazing experience you've ever had, or you get to sleep in your bed for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
It's so I think the struggle out there, although in the moment might not be fun, if you will, it's like hard and can be painful. It gives back this this ability to really sense and feel and experience life when you're back home, or when you're back to civilization on this much more richer level, right? So it
Mm.
gives this other part of my life so much more richness.
Unlike, let's say, some of the more talented and extreme end of the adventure world,
Mhm.
I also like my creature comforts, but I also like having a bit of hardship that makes
Yes.
me earn those creature
Yeah, there you go.
comforts. So
Yeah,
coming back to, like you said, a warm bed after spending a few days sleeping in the dirt,
right.
or having a nice meal on good. Yeah, I don't know. I sound silly, but on
You
good
get it.
china, on good china after
Yes,
eating out
right,
of
right.
those things are quite nice. I'll ask you one last question in this theme, which
Sure.
is, you have to have a certain degree of self-reliance, a high
Yeah.
degree actually, when you're bikepacking and then doing that solo. What's the let's say the most difficult equipment malfunction that you
Oh,
had to resolve?
well, Kush, first of all, I'm going to tell you this, and my friends would tell you this too. I honestly, and I got to knock on wood for this one. I've never even changed a bike tire. I know, right? You would think that I should know how to do these things. So I am not great at that stuff. So, and this is part of the message that I love to share with people, and particularly women, just because I think women have a lot. I mean, I don't, I'm just going to generalize. I think in general, women have more fear doing these things. And so I like to talk to them about, but this could go for anyone, like to do the stuff I'm doing. It's like it does, you can, you don't need to necessarily know all these amazing mechanical things and how to fix them. You know what I do? I download YouTube videos, like, how to change a tire, and I've got little notes in my phone. And I mean, worst case scenario, I couldn't get it fixed, like someone's gonna come and find me. Some people know where I'm at. So I just don't, I don't know. I like to put out the message that that doesn't have to be a barrier to get started, right? Now, I'm
Mm,
not going to go do the 500 miles of the Arizona Trail, like,
mm,
without knowing some of these things. But, the stuff I'm doing, I'm not this crazy adventure athlete compared to like racers and all that. I'm just this 50-year-old mom, who just knows the importance of adventure in her life, who knows the importance of
mhm,
struggle in her life.
mhm,
And I don't want to sit on the sidelines and not do something because I'm intimidated about changing a bike tire, if that makes sense.
mm,
So when I didn't exactly answer your question. Um, Thankfully, I've never had anything major go wrong when I've been out there alone. I was one time with a friend who I did lose a tire. She had to change my tire for me, so she did it. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a barrier into any of those things. If I would hypothetically, what would be really bad would be if like I crashed on my bike or something. I
mm.
mean, that would probably be worst case scenario, I suppose.
I love that answer,
Oh, good.
and I can take a lesson from that myself, which is analysis
Yeah,
paralysis never got any of us anywhere,
that's
and
so true.
it's probably better to just take a bit of risk and
It
venture
is.
out. And as somebody else
Yeah,
said to me recently, sometimes you have to fly the plane as you're building the plane, and then
I love that.
you come and deal with. And I think being spontaneous and being resourceful in the face of I think adventure also teaches lessons.
Yeah, I
But yes,
agree.
if you decide to go on a wild ride through the Arizona desert. Please, Heather.
I will learn how to change a bike tire. I promise.
Or at least like an InReach or something. Okay, awesome.
Oh, I've always got that along. I always have that.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
That's great. One other thing I wanted to ask about your sports is I recently noticed that you were working into being able to lead climb again, right?
I was,
so
yes.
People who are not as familiar with climbing, tell us why is lead climbing different and why is it important for you to be able to lead climb?
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this.
Yeah. Well, if it's okay, I'll give just a tiny bit of background on that. I've been a sport climber I've been climbing, it's been over 20 years now. But I did have about a 5-year time period from age 40 to 45 where I think I climbed twice in that 5-year period. 5 years previous to that, when my daughter it was when my daughter was born, I really just stopped leading. So I was still climbing, but I stopped leading. I always had a difficulty leading. I had a ton of anxiety. So leading was always difficult for me. And yet, I don't know if your audience, but like lead climbing would be where, you're the one putting up the rope. And so you're the one clipping the clip draws. And so basically you have this chance of taking falls. And that is what I was so freaked out by. But I could make myself do it. But when I had my daughter, it was like the anxiety was so high. I just could not lead anymore. I could not, my nervous system, it was miserable. I was sick to my stomach. It was just so not worth it, right? It was like, this is sport climbing. It's like, I don't need to be sick at the crag every day. And so I just started top roping. And that was fine. I still really enjoyed climbing. I enjoyed the movement on the rock. And so I just sort of let it go. It's like, I'm never going to lead climb again. I'm just not. And I don't know if it's a coincidence that my daughter is now leaving the home, and so like my child is leaving. She's an adult now. And so maybe I'm losing some of that mom anxiety that's there. And or when I turned 50 last November, and there was something about turning 50. I love getting older. I think getting older for me has been the best thing ever. Every year I have less anxiety. Every year I care less and less what other people think. Like, it is the most freeing space. So getting older is awesome, but there was something about turning 50 where I was like, what do I want to do with my life? Like, when I am on my deathbed, I don't want to have any regrets, right? And so so all these things kind of came together where I had been thinking about it, maybe starting about 6 months ago, of like, oh, man, I'm kind of wanting to lead again. I kind of want to take that risk again. But I'll tell you what, like, the thought of it still made me sick to my stomach. Like, it was almost like panic attack feelings, So I started this process of trying to almost use the stuff that I use with clients on myself to try to get through this barrier. So I did do a couple months of where I started taking falls on purpose, that exposure therapy, to try to just get used to that sense of falling. And it was awful. I'll be honest. Like, it was like I wanted to throw up every time. I would just get, I mean, not barely above my bowl, right? Like my heart, just my waist, just above the bowl. And like I'd look down and it's like I couldn't let go. I couldn't let go. And but eventually you have to let go, you know. So I was taking these practice falls, and that helped. That helped me, just my nervous system, realize, okay, you know, these are safe. You're not going to die. All the things. And yeah, then decided I think I'm going to try lead climbing again. But how I've been doing it, Kush, to be, you know, just totally honest and upfront. And this is another message I just like sharing with people. It's like I am rigging the routes. So, you know, I'm pretty short. So I have a hard time sometimes reaching clips and stuff. So I'm going up the route first and then deciding where are the scary clips. And if they're too scary for me, I'm hanging longer draws so that I can clip them lower. So that's how I'm kind of slowly gaining some confidence to be, thank you, to be able to lead again. So, yeah.
I support that. And one
Thank
needs
you.
to adopt strategies, and you know,
Yeah.
the shortest way from one room to the other room is not always to break the wall, you know. You
I
know,
love
there
that.
there are
Yeah. Yeah.
ways to strategize. And I know, I love that answer. Actually, it's funny. I have been climbing recently with a friend who's a new climber
Oh, yeah.
and a new belayer, and
Oh,
for
yeah.
like, and I usually don't have any issues like taking falls, but these days when I'm
Hmm.
leading, it feels a bit like free soloing because I don't want to
Yes,
take
right.
any
Because what's
falls.
your belayer doing? Right.
Yes. But that's great. You could probably teach people how to lead climb and help
I'd
people.
probably be better at teaching people to lead climb than getting myself to lead climb. Yeah.
You know, it goes back to what you were saying earlier. Sometimes when you teach people how to do something, you know, it helps oneself.
Yeah.
So,
Truth. Truth.
uh, shifting gears a little bit, I
Sure.
would love to jump a bit into what you do for a living.
You bet.
I believe you are somewhat unique in your approach to therapy. You seem
Mm.
to bring maybe a few different elements, approaches with, let's say, your background in mental
Hmm.
health.
Hmm.
And then also, you know, you are a savant with fitness and with nutrition. I'm trying to, yeah, in my mind, they seem to complement each other.
Hmm.
But I want to ask you, who is a typical client that you work with? And how do these different practices help somebody? Because, for example, let's say I am looking for help with, I don't know, anxiety, right? Could be
Hmm.
one example. Or
Yeah.
if I'm looking for help with improving my diet
Yeah.
or something else, I would typically go and find experts in all those areas
Right.
separately. At least that's how my conventional mind works.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how does somebody find you? What are they looking for? And then how do you end up maybe just using me as a case study? You know,
Sure.
let's say
Let's
I
do it.
am looking for some kind of therapy. You know, maybe
Okay.
I need to get over fear of something, but then I come to you and it sounds like you're able to help me in different disciplines.
Yeah, sure. So, and to be honest, most all my clients who I see in the office or telehealth or whatever, most of them are anxiety type disorders or
Mm.
food related disorders. So things like binge eating, overeating, emotional eating. Often both go together. But that is my typical client. That wasn't always, but that's kind of where my practice has gone. It's where my heart is. It's what I like to work with. So those are most of my clients. I suppose, you know, I use a lot of typical cognitive behavioral therapy where you're in, you know, talk therapy and you're working on our thinking patterns, our habits of thought, and how do you help people shift their story and their narrative and think in new ways, more helpful thinking patterns. I always think about for the most part, our thoughts create our feelings. Our feelings come around with little sensations in our bodies, little chemical cocktails. Those sensations kind of drive our behaviors, and our behaviors give us our results in life. And so when I'm working with people, I'm kind of always have that framework in mind. And so working a lot with people's thoughts, how they think about things, and how I'm really practical with people, how they can start to change how they think so they can experience different feelings, so they're going to have different behaviors, new results. I think the other piece where maybe is a little different. And, I just have to say out loud, I'm not a certified nutritionist, I'm nothing like that. So I can't give like nutritional advice or, any of that. But I can, from a therapist point, talk about how certain foods affect our moods. What does a healthy diet look like? I will work with people. Well, I have this little thing too. Like, have you heard of state before story or story before state? Have you heard of that at all?
I've not.
Yeah. So this is the idea, like, so story before state would be our narrative, how we think about things, how we're interpreting the world creates our state in our body. So like, if I'm thinking, just real classic, I'm thinking lots of negative thoughts, I'm very self-loathing, that sort of thing. My state of being is usually in less optimal health. I'm going to have less energy, that sort of thing. But the other side of the coin is state before story. So we can also intervene by creating a better state in our body with our nervous system. So this might mean focusing first on like sleep, on nourishing foods, on nourishing the body. So creating a state first so that then we can move into a better thinking pattern, a more helpful thinking pattern. You've probably experienced this, like if you've ever been really sick or ill, like with the flu, so our state is very ill, we're sick, and our thoughts are usually pretty negative. I'm laying in bed with a fever and it's like, this day sucks and everything is the worst. But the next morning I wake up with my fever broke. So I'm feeling better. My state is better. I'm like, oh, this is a great day. I can't wait to get to work, that sort of thing. So I think about when I'm with a client, I'm thinking about where am I going to intervene first? Like, am I going to intervene with their state first, like working on like the foundations, like the sleep, the nourishing food, all that, get their state right. And then we're going to use some of the cognition stuff or are we going to work on the cognition stuff first to get them to do the things to get themselves into a better state with the nervous system? And then I do use some somatic practices as well, which I just think for anyone listening, if you're thinking about therapy or, you're thinking about hiring a coach or something like that, just understanding that there are all these different modes that can be used, and kind of maybe what you're most comfortable with is where you go first. But somatic therapy is where you really work with people on expressing or processing their emotions with their body. So things like grounding techniques or things like, it's called the five senses, where you're paying attention to your five senses, trying to bring yourself into the moment. So somatic therapy has more to do with you kind of utilize your body, even positions of the body can make you feel differently. So, if you give yourself a hug and hand over the heart, if you really pay attention, it'll bring your nervous system down, So that's another way to intervene, to just help people, find that wholeness, find that more peace in their lives and bodies.
Just the last thing you said seems simple yet powerful. I know that for sure. That act of being able to soothe myself I think somebody taught me this a long time ago, which is give myself a hug or pat my own self, pat my own back,
Yes, that's
those
right.
things.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm curious. These practices with somatic, so fascinating.
Yeah.
Have they helped you as well with being able to get past some of your anxieties with, let's say, participation in the slightly riskier end of outdoor sports?
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together: training, aging, mindset, and awe. You will love this. You can find the link in the show notes or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so when I realized that I was dealing with so much anxiety, this was in my 30s. I really didn't know. I've had it since a kid, but I was a kid, but I didn't even know that. And even though I was a mental health therapist for a while, like I didn't know that's what was going on with me, you know? When I finally sort of figured that out in my 30s, yeah, I I went to I mean, I used a therapist. I went to cognitive behavioral therapy for it, and there was lots of help in that. But my thing is, Kush, like I'm super analytical. Like I'm always in my head. I'm very type A. I'm driven. I'm disciplined, you know, all to a fault. And those of us who are like that, who are in our head a lot, like we almost cut ourselves off from our bodies. And so, and that was part of like the addiction to running. Like, you know, like I had to run like 8 to 14 miles a day. Like it was awful, you know? And that is a way, even though I'm using my body, that's a way of being cut off from my body because that's not okay for my body, you know? But it's like those of us who are so stuck in our head, that somatic experiencing somatic practice of using your body to process feelings, to create a nervous system that is balanced and well can be so incredibly powerful. And obviously for you, and you know, I think you know, like it's other personalities who are very much in their body. They're very comfortable in their body. Maybe they're dancers. Do you know what I mean? Like they can express through their body. I was like, you know,
Mm,
super just always in my head. And so somatic therapy or somatic processing can be great for those types of people too. But I do think, you know, if you happen to be someone who's always in your head, the logical, the rumination, the all the things,
mm.
then somatic experiencing can be super powerful, super uncomfortable, super
Okay,
powerful.
okay. I am very intrigued. I'm gonna look into this a little bit more. I
Awesome.
think as soon as after this
Awesome.
show, do you also deal with? I shouldn't. That's the wrong word. Do you also treat, let's say,
Yeah.
uh, masters or aging athletes in your practice?
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
some of the issues some of these athletes come to you where I'm guessing on the outside they look healthy,
Right.
by most of those external appearance signals? They seem healthy. They probably have. So I'm curious, like, what are some of those things that aging athletes come to you for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in general, this would be an issue with identity. So this would
Mm,
be someone who has been an athlete for most of their life, so a high performer. And
mm,
as you know, as we age, you know, some
mm,
things do change. Now, I love your podcast so much because it's really all these inspiring stories, and I'm a believer as like as we age, we absolutely can still go hard. We can do those things, but the reality is, as we age, it does change. Physically, we change, you know, and so a lot of times it's this identity issue of who am I without being able to
mm,
run this specific time? Or who am I when now I can't do a marathon anymore? Or who am I when now, you know, I can't climb 514 anymore or whatever the thing is. And so I would say that's what I see most of. And then it's this journey with the client, like you journey with them to really help them start to create this new narrative about themselves, a new, fresh story about themselves that continues to include their athleticism and what they still love to do and all those things, but working to add in other aspects of their life. So it might be discovery of what are some of your other interests. It may be more focused on psychodynamic stuff of like, okay, well, like if we take that completely away from you, then who are you? Like, you don't have to be performing to be worthy, which it often comes down to that sense of I'm not worthy unless I'm performing. I'm not worthy unless I'm climbing 514, whatever the thing is. And it's going on this journey to help them discover that they are worthy, not even for anything they do, but just because they exist. It's this piece of figuring out that wholeness within yourself of I am worthy because I'm here, just like everybody else is worthy because they're here. So it can bring, when they get to that place, it can bring such a sense of peace and enjoyment back to life, and really enjoying doing their sport again. So it's, yeah, I would say identity crisis, right? And figuring out how to find, what would we say, like a wholeness in our identity again.
This is powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I will say this personally, it hits bullseye.
Yeah.
I know that there are many others like me, but I'm certainly somebody who is, to be completely honest, dealing with this to some degree, where I think for the longest time, maybe since my early 20s, I have had my identity and to some degree my self-worth wrapped around some of these attributes around how I look, how fit do I feel,
Right.
how people perceive me,
Yes.
with my relation to need to be perceived as some kind of athlete.
Right.
And then also for sure some of those things you talked about, which is my ability to perform at some arbitrary grade in this arbitrary sport.
Right.
And
Yes.
and why that is so important to me. In some ways, you're making me think now, we are amongst maybe the most fragile of populations.
Isn't that the truth?
Because we are so what are some of the strategies, Heather, where you help people deal with these things and help them, perhaps reclaim their self-worth back?
Yeah, for sure. So when I'm in session, when I'm in actual therapy, it's a lot of me asking questions to help that person reflect on those things, and to also, like I said, I'm helping, trying to guide them into this new narrative about themselves, that they are worthy just by being, right? And so it's a lot of, when they're telling me their story, I may be interjecting, asking questions, maybe shifting a little bit how they say something in order to help them start to create this new story about themselves. And our story, our narrative about ourselves, it's all in how we think about ourselves. And our thinking, again, we have habits of thought, just like we have behavioral habits. So just like I brush my teeth with my right hand every morning, not thinking about it, I have habits of thought, like, and I can just personal, my habits of thought were a lot of self put down, like you're not good enough. It was a lot of that kind of self talk, and that's a lot of people. And so you can intervene also with practical strategies. So I'll often send people home with homework, or if I'm coaching people, it might be more like journaling strategies or interventions. And this is where I'm going to have them practice writing out their new narrative about themselves. And this is where things get tricky, because a lot of people will be like, oh, like positive affirmations, like you stand in the mirror and you're like, oh, I'm beautiful and I'm worthy. And that is really kind of crap. It doesn't work. If you hold a negative core belief that you are not worthy, positive affirmations do not work, because it's kind of bullshit. Like there's a part of you that doesn't believe it. So I ask people to start out with neutral self statements. So things like they're writing to themselves or saying to themselves things like, I'm working on it. I am working on building some self worth. I am working on it. And that's more neutralized, but it does up level the thinking process. And here's the thing with thoughts that people don't get, they are habits. So if you are interjecting new thoughts on purpose, you're writing them in your journal, you're literally setting a timer on your phone to repeat them to yourself every day, 5 times a day or whatever, you start to reprogram your brain. And you will find over time, those new thoughts start coming in more and more often. And when we're thinking the thought, oh, yeah, I'm working on this, I maybe am kind of worthy, we feel different, we behave different. And so those are some practical ways that you really can change your sense of identity.
It sounds simple yet powerful.
Well, we'll say simple, but not easy. But yes, powerful.
Yeah. You're right. I think sometimes the simplest simple. I think because it's simple, I sense, and it's something I have to work on it as well. Is my tendency to not appreciate it enough, when maybe
right.
athletes are the way we are programmed, which is like, oh, if you can't do these really hyper mobilization activities, then it's not going to bring you value. Where sometimes something like this, which, like you said, it's simple, it's not easy, but might still be powerful. Any other ones you can think about?
Yeah. Another one that I love, and this would be just to keep it practical and so that listeners could actually try this without going to a therapist. This would be another journaling tactic. I use journaling a lot. And by the way, tons of research behind that. Like, journaling is very powerful and you can make changes with journaling. So I do use it, even though people are like, I know, but if you can get them started, they see the benefits, they'll keep it going. So that's good. But I love this one of you take two different colored pens. So you might have one green pen, one blue pen. And in your journal, you're going to take the blue pen, and your blue pen is kind of like your inner child, right? So you would write out in your blue pen, because now you're embodying the inner child, you would maybe write out those messages that you got, intentional or unintentional, from when you were little, because that's often when we get pre-programmed with the thoughts that we're not good enough, whatever it may be. So you kind of write out the story, but from that child's viewpoint, so you're writing, well, I feel sad because I got all A's on my report card and 1 C, and mom only mentioned the C, so it could be just like that. So you write out some things like that. Then you take your green pen, and your green pen is your wise mind you. It's authentic you. It's loving parent you. Like, if you could envision a very loving, healthy parent, and so now that's you. You got the green pen, and you respond to your inner child with that green pen, with what a loving parent would say, and to soothe that child. And so you write that out, and you can kind of do this back and forth, and you will find it really does help to soothe that sense that we're not good enough. And it's actually called reparenting. I mean, we do that in therapy a lot too, reparenting. Yeah. So that would be another practical way to make some pretty dramatic change, with just a little writing.
I do a bit of journaling myself, but I think when I sit down with my journal tomorrow, I'm going to look for a different colored pen, than just my usual boring black pen, and find a different colored pen. And I'm going to try that, because I can kind of see how when you use a different pen, maybe it shifts your mind into something else, where you can you can like play with the contrast and play with maybe
Yes,
this different identity and this different person. Wow, this is
that's right.
sounds like a really simple and a helpful strategy that we can we can benefit from. Moving along,
Sure.
let me ask you this. So you also work with people and their diets and their
Yeah.
nutrition, right? And what are some, let's say, some key considerations for aging athletes when it comes
Yeah.
to maybe managing their nutrition, and maybe
Yeah.
what are maybe some common mistakes that
Yeah.
these people are making?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And again, just state, I'm not a nutritionist. This is just like I geek out on this stuff. I read a lot of the studies. I listen to this stuff all day long. And so I'll just give you my opinion on what I believe can be really helpful and what I've seen help clients who have come to me. And so I would say practical level, number one, protein is probably one of the most important factors as you age. Um, we just have lots of studies on the importance of muscle, and as we age, we also know we lose muscle. You never want to get to that place where you're dealing with sarcopenia, and that's
Mm-hmm.
muscle wasting. We see that a lot of times in older folks who are very frail, and so your goal or a person's goal as an aging athlete, my goal is really to keep on as much muscle as possible as we age, and or even build. It used to be sort of this idea that you couldn't build muscle as we age, but we've got a few new studies out showing that even like 70-80 year olds can put on some muscle, so that's pretty inspiring. um, the protein piece comes in, so two things,
Mm-hmm.
so lifting weights, but then the protein piece comes in. We really need that protein, like the full gamut of the amino acids, to really maintain and build muscle. And so what happens a lot of times as we age as well, like our appetites diminish, and or I see a lot of women my age, and what they've
Mm-hmm.
done is really they're trying to lose weight, like they're putting on weight, and so they're starving themselves. They're coming in like they're only eating
Mm-hmm.
1,200 calories a day. These are athletes, and it's like you are going to waste away. You're going to lose all your muscle, so really
No,
helping
hang on.
people
Sorry,
figure
hang on.
out.
So
Yeah, go
if
ahead. Go
these
ahead.
people are athletes, and sure, maybe they have some uh, some needs around being able to maintain a certain kind of like I don't know body composition.
Right,
These
right.
people are not going to be overweight, I'm guessing, right? So why
No,
are they concerned with being able, like
they're not overweight, but
reducing their
yeah, they're not technically overweight, but they will come to me. They think they're overweight. And this is, I mean, I don't know if I see this a lot within the climbing community. A lot of that strength to weight ratio sport, where
mm,
it's sort of like, I need to be thinner to do better, that sort of thing. And so you're right. Technically, they would go into a doctor's office. They are not obese, but they
mm,
think they need to take weight off. And so they've been
mm,
trying to lose more weight, but they're just losing muscle. And so
mm,
and you can kind of, I hate to say it, but you can probably get away with that a little bit in your 20s,
mm,
maybe even your 30s. But as you get into your 40s, 50s, 60s, it really becomes having to shift this mindset. And I deal with mostly women, so a little generalization here, but it's like this idea that you have to be super skinny or thin or that sort of thing versus strong. And it's like if you
mm,
are an athlete, like you're going to need to be strong. So it's kind of helping shift that mindset. I will also say, I'm not dealing with professional athletes or anything. Like I'm dealing with
mm,
people like me who like to be active, and we're amateur. Amateur. And then also I do have another group who definitely are very overweight. They're not athletic, but they also
mm,
are really trying to lose weight, and they're doing all the right things, but they're not
mm,
eating enough protein, and therefore they're not dropping pounds, their
mm,
metabolism is slowed way down, that sort of thing. So then the other side of the coin would be, I'm a huge proponent. We were talking nutrition, but then also in regards to muscle, just some kind of strength training, some kind of resistance training to keep that muscle going.
This message around the need to maintain muscle and strength and eating an appropriate diet. I mean, that is maybe one of the most consistent lessons, if I may, that have come out of my conversations with, the best athletes and even the best coaches and people like yourself. So it sounds like it's mostly non-controversial, though. One part
true.
I want to ask you, which is the amount of protein. And I used to eat a lot of protein in my 20s. I used to lift a lot of weights, blah blah blah. And
blah blah blah.
I part of me feels that this standard ratio of protein that is advised is this marketing speak from the protein, fitness, animal protein industrial complex. And the reason for my skepticism is I turned vegetarian many years ago. I have many friends who are vegetarians, vegans, they're athletes. They are pretty exemplary at what they do. And I'm pretty sure they're not consuming, that whatever that advised 1 gram of protein, to 1 pound of body weight. So I feel I absolutely understand that we need protein.
Right.
But I am just skeptical of the amount that everybody seems to preach. So curious, curious where what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, you bet. And so we might disagree a little bit, which is great and fun. So I usually do recommend, I recommend 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per ideal body weight. So whatever that would be. And I would just say, Kush, it's kind of like, I also believe everybody's completely unique and different. And so, I mean, I know some of those, vegan or vegetarian athletes who are also amazing. And I don't know. I mean, what would be curious is to ask your friends like how much they are getting in, because I know, and I cannot think of his name, famous climber. Is it Daniel Woods who's vegetarian, vegan? I don't know. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth.
I think there are many, but
I just know, like with this person, whoever, like I can't remember the name. He's meticulous in his diet, trying to get in the amount of protein. So it would be curious to ask, your friends, like what are they actually getting in? I would also say, I just think there's a range. I think for some people, that is going to be the optimal range. I think for other people, they're going to be able to maintain muscle with less, I think when we talk about, this is how I think about it. I'm thinking about how do you educate the masses on what is going to make us as a nation, whatever you want to say, the most healthy, right? And so that rule, it's nice to have a rule of thumb to be able to throw it out there to people. Here's the truth too. You and I are in a little different category. We're really into this stuff, but I get lots of clients who come to me who are not athletic in any way, shape, or form, and they are struggling and they have no clue where to even start, right? So I think a guideline is nice, but to your point, I do agree with you that I think if you can, to experiment with yourself and see where you're at, because everybody is different, Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate the answer and the discourse. And I think everybody is unique. And I think the messaging to the general population should be that, they need to look at the diet a bit more carefully and, make sure that they're not eating a lot of junk food and they are getting healthy foods. And I mean, the part that I don't, I think the part that I think we all agree is that we need to get this amount of whole grains, whole foods, real foods, fruits, vegetables, all of that good stuff. And I think maybe the calibration needs needs to come down to the individual person and what they need
Yes.
to be to.
Can
Heather,
I say one more thing? Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
please. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just one last thing. I was just going to say about that. I think just the other part to remember is the part that we know as we age, we will tend to lose muscle unless we are actively maintaining it. So it might also be this thing where at 20, 30, whatever, it maybe doesn't, you can just, I mean, we have so much growth hormone at that time. Like we can put on the muscle, we can keep our muscle. So maybe I was just thinking, maybe it becomes more important as we get older, you know, in regards to what we're doing with protein.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think our needs for sure, I think, change. And it goes back to some of the stuff you were sharing earlier about, identity. And it just goes everywhere, right? It's that, it's our diet, it's the way we treat ourselves on a macro level. So you mentioned you're 50 now. So, hey,
yes,
you know, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think
I made it.
I'm a few years shy, and you know, your excitement and zest for life, you know, makes me excited about my milestone in a few years.
Awesome.
As an athlete yourself, what are maybe some of your biggest challenges with aging gracefully?
Yeah. Biggest challenges with aging gracefully. Well, I would say it might be even, I mean, if I'm just being totally honest, which I will be with you, it's probably more like physical appearance stuff, you know, where, and, you know, that's probably a typical female thing. But when I see little lines creeping up and, you know, that almost is that is more bothersome to me than say, maybe not, what would I say? Well, here's the truth, Kush. So the truth is I'm performing athletically better than I've ever performed. So that part, like I can't even complain about that, right? So it probably would be just physical appearance and that vanity piece. And how do you you watch that change or you catch yourself? I don't know if you have this, but I catch myself sometimes in the mirror and it's like, who is that? Like, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, that's a 50-year-old woman, you know? So it's maybe more of that but I will also say, like, I think I'm pretty good at embracing that as well. I mean, it can bother me at times, but I'm usually pretty quick to shift my mind around that of like, and this is what part of being beautiful as we age is. It is about getting more wrinkles and lines and, you know, the body, you know, shifts in proportion in some places. And, you know, all of that is normal and okay. But there are moments where it's like,
thanks for being vulnerable. And I'll be honest, you know, it's not just women. I think men go through the same thing, but maybe we don't give ourselves permission to be able to
a really good point, Krish.
admit that and share that.
Very good point.
Nearing the end of our time, I want to, and maybe the rain has stopped outside your place and you're ready to go out.
It looks like it has. It has, but it's still misty and not sunny, so it's not calling to me yet.
Okay. Glad I can have you for a few closing questions.
Sure.
Tell me, what might have been a habit, a routine, or a behavior in the last few years that's been the most impactful to you?
Sure. Like on a like physical level or any level? Like, are we talking nutrition or anything? Yeah. Then it would be, I started a mindfulness practice some years back. And so I would try to meditate all the time. When I figured out I had anxiety, I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn to meditate because that's going to help, you know? And I'll be real honest about that too. Like I have not been able to meditate. Like I've tried. It's very frustrating to me, which I think is the opposite of what meditation is supposed to be. So I was just like, okay. But I did get into mindfulness, which is a form of meditation. But I listen to an app. So I follow an app every single day. So someone is telling me what to focus on and what to think, and I can do that. And how I made myself get it, which this is just a little tip for some people out there, if they're trying to, because, it's to get into the habit of it. How do you get in the habit of doing mindfulness every day? And the research would say we need, if we want to change our brain, like 5 to 10 minutes every single day of mindfulness will help change the brain and the nervous system. So how do I get myself to do 5 minutes of mindfulness every day? And for me, that was hard to do. It's only like 5 minutes, but it was really hard to get myself to do it. So I started this thing a few years ago where as soon as I woke up, I would put the app on and I would do 5 minutes of it while I was still in bed. And it was this beautiful way to create the habit, because nobody really wants to get out of bed right away. So it was sort of like, I can just lay here and do this for 5 minutes. It's wonderful. My brain is changing, but that's probably brought me like some of the most daily peace. I miss it if I don't do it. So that's probably a big one.
How many sessions did it take before you started noticing that change? And I ask because I also started a
good job.
meditation practice about 9 months ago. I've recently missed a few sessions, I will admit, but I am going to get back to it. Good. And while I love the routine and I love the headspace it creates, I'm not sure if I see very tangible changes. Maybe those changes are happening and they are helping me, but maybe just the expectation that I need to see something, maybe that itself is wrong. Maybe some of the wise sages will tell us,
I was just saying, I wonder if you drop the expectation, then it would feel different. But
that's right. I think it's just a Western mindset, it's my
that's
corrupted
so true.
Western mindset. Yeah.
It's so true. Yes. I would just say, research would point to it's going to be anywhere between 3 months and a year, before you like have a sense or you notice, something's really different. So this is not a short-term project, but I would also say that even if you can start to notice little, like maybe just paying more attention, because maybe there are little things that are a little different. Like, I just noticed I had a little bit more patience with my daughter, right? Like I just had a little bit more, or with clients. Sometimes with clients, you're just like in your head. And so I just noticed there was a lot more flow. I had a little bit more energy while I was at work, things like that. So.
Okay.
You never know. Great. Maybe you're being impacted and just, you have too high expectations right now.
Sure. I'm going to check in with your daughter right after this and ask her.
She'll deny. She'll be like, no, my mom has no patience for me.
Heather, what's been the best $100 that you have spent of late? It doesn't need to be the exact amount.
Yeah. Can it be a little bit more?
Yeah.
Because it's my plane tickets for my 50th birthday to go to Greece and climb. Oh. So that was a trip. That was number one on my list. It was a trip of a lifetime. I got to turn 50 while I was over there. I did some of the most amazing climbing. We lived in this stone house next to the ocean for 2 weeks. And, it was just the most fantastic money I had ever spent. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Was it Kalymnos that you...
No, although my fiance's been there 2 or 3 times, but this was Leonidio. And so we were in that area and just all up and down the... I can never say the word, Peloponnese
coast, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've been to Leonidio once. It was one of, I don't know, the best vacations, climbing or whatnot. And I'm just jonesing to get back over there. Right. I'm glad you got to enjoy some of the Greek hospitality on the cliffs.
Amazing.
And outside. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite cliff from there?
This was a few years ago. I have some projects. I remember the name Hada, Olympus, and that whole area is just so stacked. And just taking rest days and going out to explore. I mean, oh my goodness, just doesn't.
That was some of the most fun days. Exactly. Yeah, it's a very it's like heaven. It was an amazing place.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup, Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless.
Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through prior episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.